Hello, welcome to the 13th day of July 2025. My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation. This video is something that I do every day at around 5:30 a.m. live. It's an exercise that I do to remember my life objectives and principles, those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone, which you can read for free at goingalone.org. I do this so that I can tune myself to be in better alignment with what's important to me in terms of values. This is a personal diary of sorts, done live. You're welcome to watch and leave comments, although I don't typically read or respond to comments until after my soliloquy is done. I do talk about sensitive subjects like death, so be forewarned that I may go there. I do have liberty to talk about anything that I want. I will indulge in discussing my own stuff as well to whatever degree I want. This is actually like opening my Dear Diary, so I can go anywhere I want. This is not a Japan video for all you new subscribers, and welcome new subscribers. It's great to have you here. Although that's Japan happening over there, this is about what's happening with here. I would want to thank my supporters, those who watch my videos, those who are members on YouTube, and especially those who are Patreon supporters, members and Patreon supporters. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Okay, let's jump into it. I keep notes every day, and I like to refer to my notes. I always like to refer to yesterday's notes in terms of the next 24 hours to see if I fulfilled whatever it was I had planned to do yesterday. And my note from yesterday said that for the next 24 hours, beginning yesterday at 5:30 a.m. until now at 5:30 a.m., and I usually just have one thing that I wanted to do. The one thing I wanted to do was weeding the yard, and I did that indeed. I weeded this yard down here, and I weeded everywhere around the garden in the back, and I did full morning of that. That was good. So success at that. So I'll give myself a little score on that one. Well, I'll hold off because maybe there's more elements I can add. Sometimes I score my days. Okay, so as for today, in the last 24 hours, yesterday was a humdinger of a day, beginning with a half day of gardening. Like I said, a nice lunch with my wife, a long dog walk at midday, and then an adventure in the afternoon. Went out to the mountains to go for a hike. Well, I went for a swim, but turned out my swimming hole is no more. Believe it or not, it doesn't exist anymore. So instead I went for a hike. And it was a very cloying hike, if I can use that term. It kind of made me sputter and choke a little bit because it was the simplest hike relative to what I used to do. Just as a note, I used to live in Japan, and I used to make wilderness adventures back then. I was known as softypapa, still am, but I think I consider this version of softypapa the 2.0 version. I'm 12 years older. I've had a lot more experience, a lot more mature, I think. I've come through the other end of having the experiences and writing the book Going Alone, developing my creed. But probably most importantly, I've gained a better sense of self and what my limits are and my capabilities are. And I've silenced so many of the demons, so to speak, as people say, within my head that used to prod and push me. Not literally, I don't believe in such things, but you know what I mean, the unresolved business within my mind that caused me to press deeper into wilderness than I probably should have, especially as a middle-aged man with a family. Shouldn't have taken those risks that I used to take. So to the point, yesterday's going to the wilderness and out to a canyon which used to be the embarkation point for so many deep adventures for me. Deeply risky adventures into areas with no trails, no roads, no humans, just bears, boar, giant hornets, and silence and emptiness and no connectivity. It probably wasn't a good idea for me to go to such places so often alone. Yesterday kind of was a wake up for me to recognize just how much older and mature I've become, how much more careful I am now. But that's not the purpose of this video. What I'm looking for is the hallmarks of the last 24 hours and the notable moments. And the one note that I have, and I keep notes, so the one note that I have from yesterday was sustained energy. And then in parentheses it says clouds. And I think I absolutely know what this was about. For the last, it's been almost a week now, I've had this experience of this renewed vitality that has come back. And I keep waiting for it to falter and stop and to go away. And it doesn't. It falters a little bit, sputters a little bit, but for the most part it's quite sustained. And it's been a kind of a mystery to me to figure out just why that is. What changed? Tim, who's a regular participant here, who's about 2 years ahead of me in retirement, noted the same thing happened to him at about the 6 month mark, and I'm six and a half months into retirement now. And Tim's idea was that it took that long for the effects of the deep stress of life, of our working lives, to wear off. I did some research on that and found out there's evidence to show that that's in fact the case. Many retirees report at around the 6 month mark a renewed sense of energy arriving. So it looks like this is a thing. And I keep waiting for it to go away, but it doesn't. It diminishes a little bit. But this could be simply due to the fact of the quality of my diet, the weather, the amount of sun. Yesterday was, in parentheses, I noted a cloudy day. It was perfect atmospheric weather yesterday. That could have contributed to the improved sense of well-being and energy. I did notice that the long midday walk, which we normally don't take a long midday walk, we take a long evening walk. The long midday walk kind of pressed me to the edge, but I stopped at a vending machine and got a bottle of green tea that seemed to bring me back. So that's really interesting to know. Goodness, it's been basically 6 or 7 days now of this sustained energy. Also, the peaceful, easy feeling is becoming more, PEF is becoming more commonplace, as well as the deep balance, as I've begun to call this other experience. I didn't have any moments of deep balance yesterday, but lots of PEF. That's it. That's all I've got to note from yesterday. So let's go over the creed. My creed consists of the following 8 objectives outlined in my book in the chapter titled The Good Life. Number 1 is to be always ready to die. That means I need to have my affairs in order. My relationships need to be sound. And my life's work, it needs to be complete or in at least a tidy state. Number 2, and they all are, so I am ready to die. See, I told you I'd talk about death. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of my time, to live my life and my days and my moments in ways that make good utility of the fact that I'm alive. Number 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles, precisely those principles and objectives that I'm referring to now and going over my creed. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions, to become someone who reacts well emotionally, and then on the outside visibly, to the challenging things that happen. Next is to perform good actions relative to my creed. Number 6 is to recognize my true limits and true opportunities. Number 7 is to do just one thing at a time and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. And number 8 is to keep my balance. And don't think it hasn't crossed my observation that this thing I'm calling deep balance, which is the layer below, and below means good, deeper, more visceral, below PEF, below the peaceful easy feeling, seems to involve the word balance. Balance, and I deliberately put balance as the 8th objective because it follows naturally as a result. If I can fulfill the aforementioned 7 objectives, balance seems to be the result. Now let's read one principle from the book. Today I'm going to read principle number 3 or 4. Number 4. This principle is called Anchorhold, and yesterday I read the principle called the homunculus, number 3. And I deliberately placed homunculus and Anchorhold side by side in that order because they're complementary. If you remember, if you saw yesterday's video, I talked about the homunculus, which is the little mortal man trapped within our skull, peeking up. You can all feel it. We all feel it. It kind of feels like there's like a little person right behind your forehead, looking out through your eyes, listening through your ears, that is somehow a sense of self that doesn't exist in the palm of your hand. You could have your hand amputated, and that sense of self wouldn't go away. It's because it's right here. That's the homunculus, the seeming little man or woman that lives inside our head. The next one is called the Anchorhold, which complements the homunculus. Now, the term Anchorhold needs a little explanation. An Anchorhold is a historic term. It comes from European, I think it's, is it Catholicism? I don't remember. But it was a practice done, I think, in medieval times, where you imagine a Christian church of some sort, and there would be the structure of the chapel, or maybe a cathedral. And what they would do is, have you ever seen like an anglerfish? How an anglerfish, the female anglerfish, is the big thing with the doohickey that lights like that. There's the male anglerfish. To mate with the female, they actually embed themselves mouth first onto the side of the female, and they grow into the fish. Strange thing, kind of meld into it. Back in the medieval period, people that were really devoted to religion, especially people who had the means, the money to support themselves doing this, would get permission to create to make a hole in the side of the structure of the church. That would be called a squint, a little tiny hole. And then they would build a walled, like a little walled structure on the outside, with a hole on the outside where stuff could be handed in and out and air could circulate. And then whoever this wealthy person was would have themselves walled in. And the reason it took wealth to do this, well, you had to pay the church for the permission to do this. You had to pay to have the structure built that would wall you in. Think Edgar Allan Poe, The Telltale Heart, right? Getting walled in, right? And then you'd have to pay a servant to come to this structure and pass in food and water and take out waste every day. So meanwhile, you would then live your life as this walled-in devotee to the religion, using your squint to gaze through and watch the service every day. You could see the altar, and living your life in there in silent devotion to God and prayer. These people were called anchorites, and their hermitage that they would live in, their little structure, is called an Anchorhold. So picture the Anchorhold as a prison, so to speak, a self-imposed, in this case, prison for a person to spend their life in living their life, in this case, in doing devotion to God. When I came up with the idea of the homunculus, which I didn't make either of these words up. Homunculus is a word on its own, but when I applied the word homunculus to this sense of the little man inside my head, I then suddenly realized that hey, the cranium where this man lives is just like the Anchorhold of this religious devotee, right? I can't get out. Senses come in, looking out through the squint. Senses come in. Food and sustenance and waste are transported in and out, and I'm trapped there. Now, I've looked it up, but I've never been able to get an answer. I don't know what happens to these anchorites at the end of their life. Are they removed? Like if they get really sick, do they just stay in there and maybe die? I don't know. But for me, the reason I clustered the term and the principle of the homunculus and the Anchorhold together is that I wanted to suggest the idea that they're melded, right? Whatever it is, basically I was denying the idea of a soul, because if a soul suggests that you have a homunculus within our head that when you die somehow escapes away and goes to heaven or hell or wherever, Valhalla, and goes on living. I don't abide or believe that stuff. So for me, the homunculus, once this physical body of mine dies, the homunculus is doomed because they're trapped in an expiring vessel. So let's read now. And this applying the idea of the homunculus and the anchorhold to my day-to-day life has lots of applications, lots of interesting applications, mainly in terms of reminding myself of my mortality, similar to the way that people in the old days would use memento mori charms, little things, or little bracelets or whatever it would be, to remind themselves of death. Here, the anchorhold. The subtext here is the place where we suffer and die. Here we go. There is an inward architecture which we create through. I'm sorry, I always forget to read my glasses. Sure, where are my glasses? Anchorhold. There is an inward architecture which we create through the fact and consequence of our decisions and actions, which becomes the scaffolding structure of the inner man or woman who others may dimly see when they look us square in the eyes, perceiving a light or darkness within which shines or empties in proportion to the effort we have made to not just live, but to live well and in accord with our perceived nature and better inclination. We fail utterly when we build our inner world solely guided by the prescribed blueprint precedent of others, which guidance may suffice to create grand and stately outward living, but may leave us inwardly hollow and empty in the end, when we are alone within our outer world, and we look at what we have and do possess and have made, and we wonder what we may have seemingly missed, and if somehow there may be more. Why are we so outwardly filled, yet so inwardly empty? Our home, then, a stable and impressive castle of outward success and seemingly worthwhile achievement in the claim, resting upon an inner foundation of shifting sand. So the anchorhold is the place where we suffer and die, where we live and joy, where we have the best times of our lives, the worst of times of our lives, trapped within the cranium of our thoughts, the very vessel of our body that holds our mind and brain. Okay, now for the next 24 hours, the only thing that I have planned for today is nothing. It's a free day, it's Sunday. So I will list this item. I guess I could call that an objective of this, a plan for sort of a little bit of work I'm going to do. It's a little bobbin case. It's just a nice little, I like it because it's for its wooden structure. So I'm going to list that as soon as this video is done, make the video for that. And then I'm going to carry on. I have to upload my retiring in Japan video for yesterday, which is a humdinger of a long one. Good one, I think. And then I'll go for no radio exercise today. I'll go for a walk with my wife, have breakfast, and the day will commence. We'll see how it folds. Probably do some more reading in the garden. And that's it. There's Tim. Hi, Tim. Good morning. Thankfully, still holding out for me. I think sustained by the fact that each day is simply stress-free now. Panic attacks, anxiety I was suffering through work is long gone. That's great news from the forward unit. You're on point, Tim, telling us that it's still peaceful going ahead, right? I'm glad to hear that. There's still daily life, but within tolerance level. I never realized until retirement how the bane of years of stress had ingrained itself. You know, that's interesting, Tim, that you mentioned that, and I would like to add, and you've probably heard me say this, and I think you've echoed it or said it yourself. Not only that, but not only the bane of the stress and how deep it is. It's almost like a rot. You see a tree, a big great tree that's very strong, but it has some sort of a rot in its inner core. That's kind of what this stress feels like, and I can still feel it, right? Like you said, it's a bane. It doesn't go away. Maybe it never will. Maybe all we can do is hope that the disease stops, but then we're left with a rotten, hollow interior. You can see some strong trees standing that seemingly are powerful, but they're hollow on the inside. That's a little how this feels. Not only that, though, but also this seeming inertia of the way that we've spent however many decades of our life. For us, I think it's around 40 years. How we spent our lives seems to have created a precedence and an inertia that I'm really struggling to deviate from. I wake, and this is probably the first time I've said this, Tim. I wonder if you relate to this. I wake, and if I don't have anything genuine to do, by genuine I mean that feels like it's productive, like work, I feel like I'm anxious, like I'm wasting time, like I'm almost, it's the same feeling I was a very conscientious worker, very conscientious employee. I was the kind of employee that my boss could easily leave me on my own and not worry about me because I don't goof off. Because if I do goof off, I've got this internal, minder in here that's minding my every move and saying, are you making good use of your time? Are you earning your dollar, Kurt? And that minder hasn't gone away. And I can sit here on my little sofa here or on my little chair here, and I'm perfectly free. But I can't, I have a hard time enjoying that freedom because this stupid minder that has been in charge for 40 years keeps bugging me that I'm not doing enough. I'm working on it. Maybe I have to introduce some exercise into this daily activity, because what I've done and I've done this in the past, I've had projects that I wanted to work on, and I'll introduce some sort of a keyword or a little phrase into this daily exercise to remind me towards that, or to push me on towards it, or motivate me, guide me. Maybe I need to add something here to minder no more. Maybe I should put a little sign up. There's an idea. Put a little sign up. I know it'll be backwards because the camera's backwards, but somewhere to remind me, no more minder, no more minder, no more minder. My only minder now, that's not true. No more work minder. My minder now is the minder of virtue, right? I want that minder. I want to be managed and maintained towards virtuous ends. Definitely that. Tim says, exactly the same feeling. It's a tough one, as I say to myself, I'm retired, but I found I was trying to almost recreate the work ethos of being busy all day, learning to step back a little there. Is always tomorrow. There is always tomorrow. Yeah. Or until there isn't, but that's another thing altogether, right, Tim? Right? I mean, what if there's maybe tomorrow, right? But that's what, for me, what being prepared to die is all about, is that just in case there isn't, right? You know what? Maybe I need to enhance this to somehow to the readiness for death, because, you know what I can leverage this to, Tim? Okay, when I say I'm prepared, always prepared for, when I'm ready for death, I say I want to have my affairs in order, my relationship sound, and my life's work complete. And if the answer is yes to those, then I can dismiss the work minder, right? That's an interesting way to do it. It's like, okay, if I say no to any of those things, then I need that minder to show up and put me on task to do whatever it needs to do to be prepared for death, so that tomorrow I can say yes. But if it's all yes, then the minder be damned. The work minder, go away. The ethics minder, the ethos minder, if I'm using that term correctly, I want that one to stick around. But the work minder, that's how I can leverage it into this. Let's see if I can remember to do this tomorrow. And I'll make a note for tomorrow's page. Let me just do this real quick. Assuming I'll be alive tomorrow. Okay. 4 a.m. Can you hear the soft hum of the cicadas in the background? I love it. 5:30 a.m. Okay. This is the note's not going to fit in there very well. Let me just put it up here with a little star at the bottom. I'll put it at the bottom. Is minder needed today? And if tomorrow I say that the minder, hi Sarah, good morning. If tomorrow then if I say that the minder is not needed, then I can dismiss the minder. Now the thing is, will the minder abide my dismissal? Probably not, Tim, right? I mean, you and I both know that it seems to have a mind of its own, right? I mean, it's the minder after all, right? But maybe with enough practice, if I can say, let's rehearse this. Let's say tomorrow I say, am I ready to die? Are my affairs in order? Yes. Are my relationships sound? Yes. Is my life's work complete? Yes. Okay, I'm ready for death. Then minder, wherever that minder could figuratively live, minder, work minder, you're dismissed for the day. And I will do that today. Let me just do it. My affairs are indeed in order. My relationships are indeed sound. And my life's work is indeed quite complete. My daughter is raised. My book is written. So my life's work is complete. Minder, wherever the hell you are, I don't need you today. You can go away and let me be. I might choose to just sit on my sofa here. It's a Sunday, after all, and watch a movie on Netflix on one screen and clean up my phone. I've got way too many video clips on my phone on the other screen. And I may do that for half a day. Reminder, I don't want you showing up. I don't want you hovering over my shoulder saying, Kurt, are you being productive today? Is this a good use of your time? Well, I'll say to you, what constitutes a good use of my time, Mr. Minder? Well, are you working? Are you making a buck? Well, I don't need to do that anymore, Mr. Minder. So thank you, Mr. Minder, for sustaining that, beating that drum, maintaining that message, chanting that mantra for 40 years to allow me to make sure that I worked hard to support my family and to provide for us and give us security and prepare for retirement. Thank you, Mr. Minder. You did a great job for that. But guess what? You're not needed anymore. You can go. Take it easy. Why don't you go take a break? In fact, I'm going to sit here and watch Goodfellas or something, or some sort of. I started watching that series Mo on Netflix, which seems to be pretty interesting. I watched the first episode of it. Well, look at this. See, I'm not usually the type of guy to watch movies, but I guess in retirement I'm starting to find a little piece in time to relax and enjoy a movie or two. Actually, I watched a movie. Actually, I watched Goodfellas already. I just brought that up because it's the only movie I can remember. And well, anyway, I'm way off topic, but you get the point, right? Find a way to work in dismissal of the minder, or enactment of any other variation or alteration of my life's trajectory. Okay, thank you, Tim. I appreciate the feedback. Tim says, I think I mentioned about the good of time as a comment in your last vlog about the good of time. Last vlog upload about time speeding up in retirement. I remember you mentioning time speeding up, and that is certainly the case. This last week flew by like 48 hours. Wow, I don't know how many hours there are in a week, but it felt like 2 days. It's an interesting thing. And you and I keep saying, and probably wears people out for me to keep on saying this all the time, but where, in retirement, where the heck did I ever manage to fill a career, stuff a career in raising a daughter in the midst of all this? Yeah, I figured that's what you meant, the good use of time. My fingers do the same thing, and I send messages, and I'm like, that came out funny. I thought that's what you meant. Well, okay, it's, I think I've covered just about everything. All right. I think I'm all finished for now. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Exactly that. It's a strange one. Sure is. Wish you all the best, everybody. Be safe, but not too safe. Have a great rest of your weekend. Take care.